Hey YouTubers, Muskrat Jim here for the last installment of what I learned from watching Alone on the History Channel. Anyway, this video is going to cover episode 7 through to the finale. Episode 7 was entitled Hunger, and in it we saw the 4 guys struggling to find food. Sam with his deadfall traps to catch mice, and then Alan, Mitch, and Lucas with their nets and fish hooks. Now the thing I learned in this episode was that survival fishing and survival trapping are hard work. You have to be persistent and preferably have more than one trap or one fish hook. Now Alan was able to find some plastic soda bottles or water bottles that he modified into simple fish traps, and he was able to fish or actually catch small little minnows, and I think some of them look like tadpoles, and anyway, he was able to catch some food that way. Lucas found a styrofoam buoy, a float, and he was able to cut that up into sections to make, I think, 4 or 5 individual floats to float out a trot line that had several hooks on it to catch fish. So clearly one man's trash is another man's treasure, and we shouldn't overlook anything that we might come across for its survival potential. The Alone show demonstrated the reality of bugging out in the forest when the stuff hits the fan, when you don't know when or if you'll be coming out. The guys that stayed the longest lost the most weight. Now after 8 weeks, Alan said that he lost nearly 60 pounds. That's 25 kilos. So long-term survival in a bug-out situation isn't going to be pretty. You're going to slowly starve yourself to death if you don't get enough food. You simply can't live on a single mouse a day or a handful of limpets and some seaweed. In addition to what you can catch and forage, you need an adequate supply of carbohydrates in the forms of starches and sugars. Now many edible plants store starch in their root systems during the fall, and it's available throughout the winter and the spring. So it's important to learn what these plants are in your area. Carbohydrates can also be obtained from the inner bark of certain trees, such as pines and spruces. Other trees may also be available in your area that supply an edible inner bark, such as maples and birches. Now as far as sugars go, you can get them from spruce and pine gums, and as well as from the sap from birches and maples as well. Now I didn't mention firs. Fir trees, although the sap is edible according to the field guides, it tastes horrible. It tastes like, I don't know, gasoline almost. Turpentine. Turpentine, that's what it tastes like, turpentine. Not that I've eaten any turpentine, but it tastes like what turpentine smells. Yeah, something like that. So that's another thing. Just because your field guide says that a certain part of a plant is edible, it doesn't mean that it tastes good. Also, certain plants are only edible if they're prepared the right way. For example, oak nuts, acorns. They have a lot of tannin, which is a really bitter chemical, and that's got to be leached out in water over time in order to make it palatable. In other plants, their roots are edible, or their stems are edible, but only if you boil them in several changes of water to remove the bitter taste. Nobody said survival is going to taste good. Now, as we saw in the Alone show, there's a mental aspect to long-term survival. Now, Alan said, no one is perfect, especially you. So, that means that you shouldn't take yourself too seriously. And we saw that in his personality for sure. He also said that you're stronger than you think you are. And that's important as well. Because people can surprise you at what they're capable of. And you shouldn't set limits on yourself just because of whatever you might think is a limitation. For example, my handicap. I try not to let it limit what I do. Alan also said, be tenacious. Be the limpet that clings to that rock. Persistence, perseverance pays off. So be strong. As Alan said in the last episode, when you're in the wild, it's just you, the creator, and the creation. So we should be thankful for the life that he has given us, and we should try our best to do things that are pleasing in his sight. So until next time, this is Muskrat Jim, signing out. For more muskrat survival videos, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. There's a mental aspect to long-term survival. Now, Alan said, what did he say? The Alone Show demonstrated the reality of bugging out in the forest when the shit hits the fan. Can't say shit.